HiFiMAN Sundara versus Focal Elex. Anyway, hi there. Welcome to the comparison between the HiFiMAN Sundaras versus the Focal Elex. So, a few things to mention first before we go ahead and begin. Why am I comparing these two? Well, it's pretty simple. The Sundaras have now been pretty much, well regarded as an excellent option under $500 for things like detail, a bit more of a forward treble, and bass response. The Elex have also been widely regarded. These are more of like the go-to HD 600 6X0 upgrade, like the natural upgrade. These, sound very close to natural, they sound warm, they have excellent bass extension, which fixes the issues with the HD 650s and 6XX. So many people recommend them as well. You can get these brand new for $700 or get them pre-owned for around $500, $550. And you can get this brand new for about $350 or pre-owned for around $300 some. Now I know it's still a $200 upgrade, but obviously if you're looking at around these prices, $200 is a lot for you. So you're thinking, for $200, is it worth getting these or should it just stick to these? That's what I'm here to answer. Now, a few things to mention. Like I said, the Sundaras used in this comparison are the newest revision done in early 2020. Although many reviewers claim that there are no sonic differences between the old and the new versions, I believe that there are. If you would like to know more about the differences, check out my impressions of these Sundaras in the video linked in the description. I'll go ahead and also link the reviews and my thoughts on the original Sundaras, and then you can just kind of compare the two. Now, with that out of the way, let's begin. As far as contents are concerned, look, after the $500 mark, companies start to offer you more than just the basics when it comes to additional contents, and this would be no exception to the rule. While the Sundaras come with the standard things you'd expect to receive with a headphone, for example, the single-ended cable that comes with it, the 1/4-inch adapter, and pretty much nothing else, the Elex come with a more showy box that is intended to look appealing as well as protect the headphones. So if you take a look at this incredibly dusty box, because that's how well I take care of my things, apparently, it says Focal, and it says Mass Drop, and it's huge. Yes, it's cardboard, but it's a huge box. Like, I can't even fit it on camera. There you go. And I'm extending my arms like as far as my arms go. You open up the lid, you can see the inside. That's where the headphones go. This section right here is where the cables, this section right here is where the cables go tucked, and I can pull out the cables from there, as you can see. And the top of the lid has this kind of like sound dampener kind of look to it that looks very nice, like the dampening tiles that you would put around a recording room and stuff like that. So it's sad. It looks like an awesome display box, but it just doesn't serve the function unless you go ahead and modify it. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. So additionally, with the Elex, you also receive 2 cables. And here you ho. Is it sad when you're the only one that can make you laugh? So these come with dual 3.5 tip sleeve connectors to a 1/4 inch. And this one is the same thing, except it is a 4-pin XLR connector. So I want you to throw these away because they don't serve any purpose. I mean it, like they're absolutely one of the worst cables I've ever seen. Second only to like HiFiMAN's cables, but these are the higher end brand that's supposed to be, these are not the Chinese manufacturer, these are the French manufacturers. They bring you the quality. My fucking ass. So yeah, French manufacturer, you're expected to receive quality, and like even in their higher end headphones, that just doesn't happen. The cables are faulty sometimes, they are terrible, they keep their shape, and it's just not a good thing. So be ready to also purchase an aftermarket cable with either one of these, because both of these cables are just really meh. Now let's jump into the build quality. The Elex do beat the Sundaras by a smidge in this department. Why? The Elex are mostly made of metal. The only plastic found on these is on the part of the headband where the Focal logo resides and the yokes enter. Now the Sundaras are pretty similar in this regard, although their size adjustment mechanism, the only part that is made of plastic, does feel like it would be a bit easier to break, but just be careful. Quite honestly, yeah, the Elex have the better build quality. Anyways, as far as comfort is concerned, they're both on the less comfortable side of things, to be honest. After wearing both for a span of about 30 minutes each, both the Sundaras and the Elex had a tight clamp force. If anything, the Sundaras felt a bit tighter on the clamp force. However, the Elex also begin weighing down on you far more than the Sundaras do. Therefore, I'd say the Sundaras are actually the more comfortable of the two. Plus, they feel more secure. Yeah, as far as weight distribution is concerned, it's funny. The Sundaras here in my hand feel heavier than the Elex. Yet, on my head, the Elex feels so much heavier than the Sundaras. Let me put it to you this way. Like, after the 30 minutes with the Sundaras, I didn't really feel like I needed a break, but I could adjust and, release some of the pressure. That's fine. After 30 minutes with the Elex, I just had to take them off. I was looking forward to that 30-minute mark to hit so that I could remove these from my scarred head. Anyways, as far as the tech is concerned, there's not a lot to discuss here. The Elex are a dynamic driver, which means that they are able to function with a solid state amp, single-ended or balanced, and through a tube amp. Now, personally, I strongly advise you use these balanced because they gain so much in the soundstage, bass quality, and other parts. You can go ahead and check out the review of the Elex down below if you want to know the details on that. But long story short, do not get these if you're planning on running them single-ended. I don't know about tubes, but no single-ended. Go balanced, solid state. Now, the Sundaras are planar magnetic drivers, which means that your selection of tube amps is pretty limited. I check with the Sundaras and whatever tube amp you've been eyeing or already own to see if they are compatible first. Now, as far as the sound is concerned, all testing was done with their stock frequency responses. No EQ was introduced, nor will be, until the nodes/observations portion of the comparison. Now, the Sundaras were tested using their single-ended cable, but the Elex were tested with a balanced cable. As I've mentioned before, the Elex really are not worth it unless you are running them balanced. There is a large step up in sound quality and soundstage and imaging, actually. So feel free to check out my review of the Elex, which I already mentioned. With that out of the way, let's begin. In the bass department, with bass guitars, they're just about the same as far as technical capabilities go. Where they really differ is in the forwardness and the timbre. The Sundaras are more recessed and possess a colder bass response, yet still have plenty of growl and texture. They do sound a bit cleaner. Now, the Elex on the flip side are more forward with a thick timbre. Surprising results here, the Elex have the warmer tonality of the two. It rolls off as a dynamic would, but it rolls off pretty deep for a dynamic. It definitely does quite well. I gotta commend it, yes. But the Sundaras, as I mentioned, yes, they have a colder response. That said, when it reaches the sub bass, you can really hear that bass go deep. It's actually really impressive, especially for $350. It really displays some of the planar magnetic driver's biggest advantages. Now, when you apply some minor EQ to that area, which I'll go over later, the sub bass it's so jaw-dropping. It's so jaw-dropping. Kick drums have more body with the Elex, but are faster and have more slam with the Sundaras. It's up to you. Do you want the thick kick drums, or do you want the fast and slammy kick drums? Now, as far as mids go, polarizing viewpoints here. The Sundaras are sharper in both senses of the word. They are sharper in detail, revealing more within the female voice. They are more forward and stand farther apart than the instruments than the Elex. However, they are sharper, as in more strident and less of a comfortable listen than the Elex. So I'll give you an example. Dream On Postmodern Jukebox cover. On the Sundaras, the cello is actually more discernible and faster. On the Elex, the cello has a fuller, creamier substance to it, but it lies hidden behind the string bass and can disappear quickly when the female singer picks up. Generally speaking, the mids in the Sundaras are really just on the thinner side and more detailed side, but the mids on the Elex are more recessed but do have a fuller substance to them. I wouldn't say either one of these are like kings of mids. Now, as far as the treble is concerned, as usual with HiFiMAN, the Sundaras have a somewhat silvery timbre to the treble, which can also be heard a bit in the mids, which kind of makes that kind of thin sound to them. Therefore, they don't sound very natural. However, I wouldn't call this particular case a drawback, rather a characteristic of the headphone. The Sundaras do have a more treble forward response than the Elex, but it is not unbearable either. Even on the most treble heavy tracks. That forwardness in the treble results in more defined cymbals/hi-hats, and a more crystalline high end. As I've said before, however, it is not overdone. I'd honestly say it's one of my favorite treble heavy cans of all time. They do forwardness and like crystalline detail so well without overdoing it or without making it rough around the edges or anything like that. It's really good actually. Now, one minor caveat, the S and TH range is a bit sharper on the Sundaras, but it's really not by much. It's really not by much. The Elex have a closer to neutral response, but do possess a bit of a peak at around the 10K mark. It's not a big problem, but it can be EQ'd if you choose to do so. Again, more on that later. Overall, I'd say the Elex have a rolled off treble, but it does extend quite far. Therefore, you get a mostly neutral treble, but do hear that sort of like boxiness up top with dark headphones. You know what I'm talking about. Now, as far as soundstage and imaging is concerned, soundstage is wider on the Elex, while the Sundaras are on the more narrow side of things. As far as imaging goes, it gets a bit interesting. The Elex outshine the Sundaras, as expected. It's the more expensive headphone. However, the Sundaras do represent the imaging in a more separated and clean sort of manner. It's probably because of the treble tilt, but it just does. Either way, the Elex do have that additional room to reproduce sounds if it is required. So real quick, the notes and observations section. While testing out the two headphones, I noticed, funny enough, that all of a sudden, the Sundaras didn't sound as good as I had originally heard. Upon further inspection, it turns out that the 4th-inch adapter that the Sundaras came with was acting up. Sometimes you'd pretty much just hear the mids, and then sometimes you definitely hear crackles. Like you'd have to really shift this into place and then not move it like that. Otherwise, it was gonna cause defects and distortion and stuff. Not distortion, but just not create sound the way it's supposed to. So it's just a bit of a thing to look out for. By introducing some EQ, you get to fix the majority of the issues these headphones face. By introducing the EQ to the Elex, the mid-bass, which I personally consider a tad too warm, is tamed a bit, but gains texture and finesse. It allows the sub-bass to deliver a more powerful rumble since it is no longer outshone by the mid-bass. Like again, there's no emphasis in the sub-bass here, being done with EQ. It's just that because of that pullback in the mid-bass, the sub-bass is allowed to be heard a little bit better, and then you realize, hey, wow, these actually do have really good sub-bass. Last of all, that minor peak at 10K is mildly mitigated and does produce a favorable result. It's entirely unnecessary though. It's just a matter of taste, but I personally do apply it, and I personally do think it has a good effect. Now, by introducing this EQ to the Sundaras, what you end up getting is a slightly fixed treble response. You fix a little bit of that peakiness in the treble that happened. It occurs at, I believe, around 9K. Just lower it down a tiny bit, and it still maintains the characteristics that make the Sundaras feel special, but just a little less prominent, a little more in line with neutral. It's really not a huge difference, but it's a difference I believe that is more beneficial than it is detrimental. Now, that small adjustment in the sub-bass department is, I guess I'd consider it a little more necessary than unnecessary. You don't have to, but I personally believe that it gives that sub-bass that extra rumble and authority that it really gets to have because of the excellent sub-bass extension of the Sundaras. So conclusion time. I think these headphones are very different. They're not exactly polar opposites either though. The Sundaras have a recessed cold bass, thin-ish mids, and a somewhat forward treble, with a surprising comeback in the sub-bass. Now, I go with the Sundaras for rock or metal any day of the week because of their speediness, hard-hitting drums, and excitement up top. Their speediness also gives almost any non-electronic sounds detail and swiftness. Also, for those extra low bass notes in electronic music, big benefit. However, I'd opt for the Elex for almost every other scenario, especially if it was going to be my only headphone for music. The Elex are a mostly neutral headphone with a warm bass response, somewhat absent mids, and level treble. I can use the Sundaras for any genre, yeah I can, but I'd agree with the Elex on the majority of genres since it never quite feels like it lacks in one particular area. Now, unfortunately for me, the caveat with the Elex happened to be their comfort, which is why I can't use them for more than like 20 to 30 minutes. But many people disagree with me on that too. They say, what are you talking about? The Elex are the most comfortable thing I've felt. And like I've had a good friend come in and he puts them on and he tells me, what are you talking about? They're actually really comfortable. And I'm telling you, like, how? I don't understand. I really don't understand. But I digress. Look, you're never really going to know about the comfort issue unless you try them out for yourself. But for me, someone who has everybody says they have a big head, but in the end, some people have bigger heads than others, so how am I to know? Look, that's pretty much all I have to say. As far as which of the two is more suited for me, I don't know. It's really hard to say because they cater to two different types of people. Look, as far as comfort's concerned alone, I'd lean for the Sundaras just because of that. But do note that the Elex are the better quality headphone as far as sound is concerned, just because, well, it is the higher end headphone, it really is. But the Sundaras do have advantages to them that doesn't necessarily make them the better quality in sound, but they have a special characteristic to them. I'm gonna just leave it there before I continue ranting forever and ever. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, leave your comments down below. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them down below. Check out the links for the Amazon affiliates for the Sundaras. These are not available on Amazon. We have a Patreon. Check out the Patreon. So that's going to do it for me. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope this helps your purchasing decision. I'll see you in the next one.